Welcome to this quick tutorial on how to utilize the eDocList sign-out list from the administrator account. When you first log on, you will see this administrator page, which lists various news items here, and there'll be two menus up at top. This top menu, which the users also see, is how you access the sign-out list. That's here, and it gives you a list of the patients. If you want to go back to the administrator section, you click the administrator link here, which will then give you a submenu of tasks that you as an administrator can do, such as add and remove users. You can customize the sign-out list, which we will get to in a minute, as well as some other functions. Settings allows you to add and remove services. When you first log on to eDocList, you will see a sample patient on the sign-out list. You can see two pencils here. This pencil or edit icon, when you click it, will allow you to edit the columns here, such as removing columns, adding columns, renaming columns. This pencil here will allow you to edit the various fields below. Let's start with this one. Click here, and it will give you a list of all of the columns that are available to you. For example, admission diagnosis, you can rename it. For example, you can choose to hide past medical history here. And let's modify that and show us what that looks like. So admission diagnosis is now DX. We rename that. The past medical history column is now no longer displayed. And incidentally, these columns can further be adjusted by resting the cursor over the column and adjusting it that way. Another feature is the ability to handle labs. So if you turn this on and hit modify, what you'll see is a new column called labs. For example, if this patient, you have a Chem 7 here that you can enter various functions, and you can enter any free text under radiology. Anything there. Other could be. And then when you add this, it will add that information to the patient's list. You can then add from here, or simply go back to the sign-out list and you can see the labs. The next day or any other time, you can hit update here, enter new ones here, go back to the list, and order by time shows you the results. So that's the lab table. Another thing that you can do is you can stack two columns. What this does is it saves you some width space by taking one column and putting it under the other. So first, to stack two columns, you turn this on, this feature on. The top field is from this, let's call it admission diagnosis. And what do we want to put under the admission diagnosis? We can put, let's put a problem list under that. Hit modify. And we can see that the problem list is under here. Let's enter an admission diagnosis to make that easier to see. The admission diagnosis is here and the problem list is here. This is another column. So that's how you customize the columns. We also have a feature of a checklist. And what that is it allows you to have a number of items, and these can all be renamed. And that's here. Let me give you a quick example of that. When you click a patient, here's how you edit a patient. You click the patient's name, and you will see the various fields that you have chosen to display. This is checklist. You can rename this, of course. So you can put anything else you want here. Whatever you want to put in there, and it displays that there. This, unlike the lab table, does not give you a running tab. As you edit this, it'll overwrite the previous value. Okay. You can also edit these values down here by hitting this one, and you can see a list of those fields and whether you hide and display them. The medical record number needs to be there, but you can name it to anything you want. These are all self-explanatory. This checkbox here simply means do you want it to be a required field. If you do, the user will need to enter the value for this before moving on. You can add some of the values under the name and make it its own separate column here by saying this to yes, making a new column called new column, whatever you want to call it, and these from up here are what will happen. Let's do that. You can see it becomes a new column. If you want to go back, let's change that to a no, and you will see that they go back under here again. So that's one thing you can do. I'd like to also now take you to the administrative panel, and this menu is by clicking the administrator button here, and you see a blue submenu here. So the customized sign-out list is really just a combination of the two pencils from the sign-out list here. So another way of customizing the sign-out list is through the administrator panel under Customize Sign-Out. Users will give you a list of your users, and from here you can add a new user by clicking this button here, and you see the password here is blank. If you're going to be entering a number of users, what we would suggest is go to Settings. Under Default Password for New Users, put the same for all users, and then type a password that everyone's going to get. And hit Submit. And then when you go back to the users to add a new user, you'll see the password is populated here already. And you would simply instruct the user to change that password when they first log in. The username, we suggest using a email address, as that's unique. I'm just going to make one up here, and the email address would therefore be the same as the username. The user type, the system doesn't differentiate between house officer, staff, or fellow usually, so it doesn't really matter what you put, but you do have the option of clicking a read only if you want somebody like a medical student to not be able to edit the list. So keep there. Populate drop-down means that the user will be in the drop-down menu when you're adding a patient. Let me quickly open up a new window and show you what that means. Okay, when you add a patient, this drop-down window, which we now call resident, it's going to exist under here if you say yes to that question. And incidentally, back in the customized list, you can change this to a drop-down as well. A drop-down means that users that you add can exist here. A free text means that you can add anybody here. So back to adding a patient, we'll click as a yes. You can make the account expire automatically. And the user's account is not automatically deactivated on this day. That is up to you to determine what to do with that user. You'll simply be notified that the account is expired. Answering yes here will give the new user that you're adding full administrative privileges, the same as what you have, which is to add, remove users, and customize the list. We recommend minimizing access to an administrator account, except for those who really need to add and remove users or customize the list. Most of the time this will be defaulted to a yes. This means they can actually see the patient list. You might choose no if you want someone who from your hospital that wants to audit the list, but you don't want them to see patient information. They can access the list here by choosing no. Create a user, hitting submit. The user was added. If the password is less than 8 characters, you'll get an error and to try again. Now we have a user, number of logins, when they expire. You can remove them here, and you can reset their password here by typing in a new password and hitting reset. The other function I wanted to point out was under settings, which is the ability to add new services. Before we do that, let's rename this service. So you click the service name and then you can choose anything you want. Green service, let's call it. And maybe this one you have one called blue. And you want to add a new one that's over here, red. So now we have 3 services. If you want to delete the service, you click the trash can here. You can't delete a service if there's patients on here. The institutional settings, you can rename the name of your institution and change the time zone. This is a global setting that allows the list to be sorted by a certain field if you want to always sort it by last name. The default is most recent sort, which means that the last sort that the user chose is what the list is sorted by when they log back in.